I'm actually surprised that there's football at all in North Korea. But apparently there's a North Korean footballer who disappeared. Let's get into this.
On November the 16th, 2023, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Syria took on North Korea in their first World Cup qualification match for the 2026 finals. Only 4,000 fans were there to see Syria win 1-0. But the game was significant for another reason. Starting for North Korea was striker Han Kwang-song. Han was North Korea's first international star. He even played in Italy, but for 3.5 years, he disappeared. So, what happened to him?
I'm just honestly shocked that they even fielded a team. The fact that, citizens of the country don't have access to the internet, don't have any knowledge of actual world history. So the fact that they were even able to field a football team, I'm a little shocked by it.
North Korea is among the most isolated and repressive places on Earth, and yet Han managed to break out. He was the first North Korean to score in Serie A. He even briefly signed for Juventus for €3.5 million in January of 2020. But Juve sold him 6 days later to Al Duhail in Qatar. And as the coronavirus pandemic swept the world, Han vanished. For 3.5 years, his whereabouts were a mystery. And then, in November 2023, with no explanation, Han suddenly re-emerged in Saudi Arabia for the Syria game. But where had he been? The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has the dubious honour of being the world's most isolated and secretive country on Earth. According to Human Rights Watch, North Korea exerts tight control over the population through threats of execution, imprisonment, enforced disappearances, and forced labour in detention and prison camps. The country's absolute ruler is Kim Jong-un, the third generation of the Kim family to control the country since the end of the Second World War. The founding father of North Korea was Kim Jong-un's grandfather, the great leader Kim Il-sung. Kim Il-sung was a guerrilla leader who, after the Second World War, founded the Democratic People's Republic of Korea north of the 38th parallel. In theory, a communist utopia that in reality was a totalitarian nightmare, dependent upon Chinese and Soviet subsidy. The Korean War, fought against a US-led UN force in the south, started 5 years later and took 4 million lives. Pyongyang was virtually destroyed. When the fighting ceased in 1953, both sets of troops were back to where they'd started. There has never been a peace treaty. Kim Il-sung built a brutal state apparatus around his cult of personality and the quasi-religious concept of Juche, the official state ideology that mixes Marxist-Leninism with extreme nationalism and emphasizes self-reliance above all else. When Kim Il-sung died in 1994, he was replaced by his son, the dear leader Kim Jong-il, who maintained the country's isolation as he embarked on a quest for nuclear weapons. In 2010, the dear leader died and was replaced by his youngest son, Kim Jong-un. Now, North Korea remains a mystery to almost everyone, except in one area: football.
Really?
One of the few times North Korea
wild
has
to me.
any visibility outside the country is when its men and women's national team play abroad. Famously, the men's team knocked Italy out of the 1966 World Cup. But it's actually the North Korean women's national team that has been more successful. They've won the Women's Asian Cup 3 times and qualified for 4 Women's World Cups, although they were banned from the 2015 finals after failing drugs tests. The North Korean Federation blamed the failed test on a traditional Chinese medicine extracted from a deer's musk gland that had been administered after several players were hit by a lightning strike whilst training. FIFA rejected their explanation. But Kim Jong-un, a well-known basketball and football fan, has still invested heavily in sport. He laid out its importance in a letter titled, "Let us usher in a new golden generation of building a sports power in the revolutionary spirit of Paek-2," addressed to the attendees of the 7th National Conference of Sportspeople on March the 25th, 2015. Sportspeople should regard their training programs as combat orders given by the party, and their training arena as a battlefield for implementing the party's ideas and defending their country, he wrote. A countrywide scouting network had been set up in North Korea's
It's an interesting approach to sports, if you ask me.
schools, and a brand new academy, the Pyongyang International Football School, was founded in 2013. It was here that Han Kwang-song was discovered. The problem was, in a country so isolated, how could these talented players get experience playing at the top level?
Question.
A deal was struck between the ISM Academy near Perugia in Italy and the DPRK Football Association to send dozens of young North Korean players, including Han, to train. The deal was brokered by Antonio Razzi, a controversial former Italian senator whom Kim Jong-un called a personal friend. Han Kwang-song was ISM's great success. He was promoted to the first team in 2017 and scored in his second game against Torino. He was loaned to Perugia in Serie B, scoring a hat-trick on his league debut before returning to Cagliari. By 2019, he'd made it to Juventus on loan, playing for the under-23s team. But there was a big problem. When Cho Song-hyuk, another ISM graduate, signed for Fiorentina in 2016, an Italian parliamentary investigation was launched into reports that Cho was being monitored by North Korean officials, banned from using the internet, and that 70% of his wages was allegedly being taken by the North Korean government. This was a common practice. Tens of thousands of North Korean workers had been sent abroad under Kim Jong-un, mainly to China, Russia and the Middle East, to replenish the country's depleted foreign currency reserves. Footballers were no different. Despite assurances that wages were paid into a named account, Fiorentina cancelled Cho's contract. And then, in September 2017, North Korea successfully tested a hydrogen bomb. The fallout was huge. Among a raft of sanctions, the UN Security Council declared that all North Korean expatriate workers had to return home by the end of 2019, for fear that their wages were being used to fund North Korea's nuclear weapons program.
Fund the war machine.
But Han didn't return. The UNSC report contains a scan of a document Han allegedly signed in Qatar pledging to not transfer any money to North Korea. However, when the COVID-19 pandemic erupted, North Korea imposed the world's most severe lockdown. No North Koreans were allowed back home, effectively stranding Han in Doha. After winning the title with Duhail, Han's contract was finally terminated, in line with the UN sanctions. He was deported to Italy in January of 2021, where the trail went cold. According to another UNSC report, Han was likely living in a North Korean embassy somewhere in Europe, although no one knew for sure. In August 2023, almost exactly 3 years after Han's last game for Al Duhail, North Korea finally opened its border. Coming back after a 3-year break for any player is almost unthinkable. Yet Han, who is still only 25, was picked for the national team and deemed ready to play against Syria. And 5 days later, he played again, this time in a second World Cup qualifier in Yangon against Myanmar. North Korea smashed Myanmar 6-1, with Han scoring one of the goals. And so, it looks like North Korea's first truly international star is back. If you like this video, please consider...
Alright, so, fascinating story unfolding here. Man, I just didn't expect that there would be football played in North Korea, but that's sounds like the national team has a little success in their last match. Man, what a fascinating story. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and smash like on the video. Comment what you think I should know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.